This is my second video going over data assignment number 4. On my first video, I just failed to reject. So I'm going to go ahead and take some notes over here. My conclusion from the hypothesis test was because the p-value came out to be too big. It was too big. I'm going to go ahead and type up my, look at all these fun fonts. I'm going to go ahead and say that I failed to reject the null hypothesis. Did you? I don't know what happened on yours. If you and I, if your p-value was greater than 0.05, just like mine, then you and I will have the same answer for number 2 and 3. If you ended up rejecting it, yours is going to be a little bit different. But I understand that we may get different answers here. Okay, number 2. Suppose you somehow find out that the average amount of sleep on school night for the entire database population is 7.5 hours. So what is this first sentence saying? Okay, what is this first sentence saying? This is saying the null hypothesis is true. Oopsies. What they are saying is that the null hypothesis is true, right? Because null was saying that mu is equal to 7.5. So what this blue sentence is saying is, suppose you somehow know that it is indeed 7.5. So what did we just do? We failed to reject the null, right? We failed to reject, and I know I'm just writing some wordy sentences to convince you, but you don't have to write all these, okay? I just failed to reject. Now, what does that mean? Failed to reject. And I told you, do not ever say except. But, you know, just to make this a little bit easy for us to understand. I just accepted the null, right? I know they're different. I know I hate to say that I accepted the null hypothesis, but failing to reject is not rejecting it, okay? I didn't reject this null hypothesis, which is true. I didn't reject the true null hypothesis. Is that the right decision or is that an error? That's what it's asking. If it is true, should I accept it or reject it? If it is true, should we reject it or accept it? If it is true, we have to accept it. We have to fail to reject it. Does that make sense? If it is false, then we have to reject it. But what this blue sentence is saying is this: hey, it is 7.5. The answer is actually 7.5. And I accepted that already. So what kind of conclusion did I make? I made the correct decision, okay? So because I just failed to reject or accepted the true null hypothesis, what can I say? Give me 1 second. Go ahead. Use both hands to type instead of just one hand. Okay, I'll say I made a correct decision. That's what I can say. The blue statement is saying that the null hypothesis is true. Okay, because null was assuming that the true mu was 7.5. And because I failed to reject this true null hypothesis, I made the correct decision then. Okay, so I'm done with number 2. Okay, all right, let's go to number 3. Now, if you fail to reject this, if you rejected this, because some of you guys probably got a small p-value, then your answer will be a little bit different. And I hope to discuss that on number 5 later on my other page. Okay, all right, let me keep going. Suppose you somehow found out that the actual average amount of sleep on school night for the entire database population is 6 hours. I highlighted that. So what are they saying here? They're not saying it's 7.5. They're saying the true thing is 6. So what's true in this case? If it is 6, is it equal to 7.5 or is it less than 7.5? It's less than 7.5, right? So if the true mean is 6, that's what they're saying. If the true mean is 6, then the alternative is true and the null is false. Okay, so what they just said in this blue statement is that the null hypothesis is false. Okay, because the null was assuming that it is equal to 7 hours. The blue sentence is saying that it is actually equal to 6 hours. So the null hypothesis is false. What did I do above? What did I above? My conclusion doesn't change. What I did was I failed to reject this time, false null hypothesis. So is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? Did I get my answer right or did I get my answer wrong? So let me think about this. I just accepted a false statement. I just accepted a false statement. Is that what I want to do? No, that sounds wrong, right? If it is false null hypothesis, if it's false, then you have to reject it. But I failed to reject it. Okay, I just failed to reject the false null hypothesis. In this case, what kind of error did I just make? I made a type 2 error, okay? Failing to reject the false null hypothesis, that is what type 2 error is, okay? Rejecting a true null hypothesis is type 1 error. And you guys learned about that, or you read about that in section 7.1. So we're just using that. So if the null is false, if somehow we know that the true mean is 6 hours, then what we assumed was false. And what I just made is I made a type 2 error because I failed to reject the false null hypothesis. So I am done with this problem. Okay, but if you have a different, I mean, you and I, if your p-value came out to be big in number 1, then you and I probably have the very same answer, right? But if you rejected the null hypothesis, I'm really hoping that I get to address that type of error on number 4, 5, and 6, okay? But I'm gonna go ahead and stop this video here and go ahead and let this process.